What if I told you the person you can't stop thinking about isn't the person who is keeping you trapped? The real person left your life a long time ago, maybe months ago, maybe years ago, but inside your mind, they never left, not because they stayed, but because your mind quietly rebuilt them. It erased the disappointments, it softened the pain, it magnified the beautiful moments, and little by little, it created someone who feels more perfect than they ever truly were. That is why you keep going back, not to reality, but to a memory your own mind keeps rewriting. Have you ever wondered why one small reminder, a song, a place, a single name, can suddenly steal your peace? Why someone who is no longer beside you still has the power to control your emotions? The answer may surprise you. It is not because your love was too deep. It is because your attachment has become stronger than your awareness. The Buddha taught that the greatest prison has no walls, no locks, no chains. It is built thought by thought, memory by memory, until one day you are no longer living in the present. You are living inside yesterday. But what if everything you believe about letting go is wrong? What if the reason you cannot move on has nothing to do with the person who left, and everything to do with the stories your mind refuses to stop telling? Tonight, Buddhist wisdom will reveal the hidden trap that keeps millions of people emotionally attached to someone who is already gone. More importantly, you will discover how to break free from that invisible prison, not by forcing yourself to forget, but by awakening to a peace that no memory can ever take away. You are not missing them. You are imprisoned by the person your mind created. One of the greatest misunderstandings about heartbreak is believing that your pain exists because someone left your life. At first, that seems completely true. After all, you wake up thinking about them. You wonder where they are. You wonder if they ever think about you. You miss hearing their voice. You miss seeing their face. You miss the feeling of having them in your life. So your mind reaches a simple conclusion: I miss them. But Buddhist wisdom gently asks you to slow down before accepting that answer, because the first answer the mind gives is not always the deepest truth. Ask yourself something that most people never dare to ask. Do you really miss the person, or do you miss the person your mind has slowly created over time? There is a very big difference. The mind is an incredible storyteller. It remembers, it imagines, it changes, it adds, it removes. Without you even noticing, it begins rewriting the past. This is why two people can experience the same relationship, yet remember it in completely different ways. Memory is not like a camera. A camera captures exactly what is there. The mind does not. The mind captures feelings, and feelings change the picture. When someone leaves your life, something very strange begins to happen inside your mind. At first, you remember everything: the happy moments, the difficult moments, the arguments, the silence, the disappointments, the misunderstandings. But as weeks pass, and then months, your mind starts editing the story. Little by little, it removes the parts that hurt your image of that person. It hides the moments when they ignored your feelings. It forgets the promises they never kept. It pushes away the nights you cried because of them. It slowly erases the moments when you felt lonely, even while sitting beside them. Instead, your mind shines a bright light on only a few beautiful memories. The first time they smiled at you, the first time they made you laugh, the peaceful conversations, the small acts of kindness, the dreams you built together. Those moments become larger and larger, until eventually they become the entire story. This is why people often say they were perfect. but were they really? Or has your mind quietly painted over every crack? Imagine finding an old photograph from many years ago. You smile as soon as you see it. It reminds you of a happy day. But that photograph only shows 1 second. It cannot show what happened before the picture was taken. It cannot show the misunderstanding that happened an hour later. It cannot show the tears that came the next week. It cannot show the struggles hidden behind the smiles. Yet every time you look at it, your mind begins believing that one beautiful second represents the whole relationship. This is exactly how attachment grows. The Buddha understood this truth thousands of years ago. He taught that suffering is not only created by what happens to us, it is created by the stories the mind keeps repeating. The mind does not simply remember. It creates. It decorates. It exaggerates. It builds an image that feels more beautiful than reality ever was. Without realizing it, you stop missing the real person. You begin missing the version your imagination created. And that imagined person is impossible to find. Because they never fully existed. That is why no matter how much you think about them, the emptiness remains. You cannot satisfy your heart by chasing an illusion. You can only exhaust yourself. Have you ever noticed how memories become sweeter the longer someone is gone? At the beginning, you clearly remember why things ended. You remember the pain, the disappointment, the distance between you. But after enough time passes, those memories slowly fade. Only the beautiful pieces remain. It is almost as if the mind is trying to protect you, but in protecting you, it also traps you. Because now, you are no longer comparing today with reality. You are comparing today with a fantasy, and reality can never compete with fantasy. This is why your present life suddenly feels empty. Not because it truly is, but because your mind keeps comparing it to a perfect story that never actually existed. The Buddha taught that everything in life changes. Nothing stays the same forever. Not people, not relationships, not emotions, not success, not failure, not even this very moment. Take a deep breath. The breath you just took will never happen again. That exact moment has already disappeared. Life keeps moving, quietly, constantly, without asking anyone for permission. Think about yourself 5 years ago. You spoke differently. You thought differently. Your dreams were different. Your fears were different. Your understanding of love was different. Your understanding of yourself was different. You are not the same person anymore. So why do you expect someone else to remain exactly as they were years ago? The person you keep thinking about has changed. Life has changed them. Experiences have changed them. Time has changed them. And time has changed you too. Yet your mind refuses to accept this. It freezes them in one beautiful chapter of your life. It refuses to let that chapter end. It keeps reading the same page over and over again, hoping that somehow the ending will become different. But books do not change because we reread them. Neither does the past. The Buddha often compared attachment to holding a burning piece of coal. At first, you believe you are holding on to something valuable, but as time passes, the only person being burned is you. The coal does not suffer. Your hand does. In the same way, the person who left may already be living a completely different life, but your own mind continues carrying the fire every single day. Every morning you wake up with it. Every night you sleep with it. Not because life forces you to, but because the mind has become attached to the habit of carrying it. Habits are powerful. The mind loves repetition. If you think about someone every day for months, your brain begins believing that thinking about them is normal. It becomes automatic. You are no longer choosing the thought. The thought begins choosing you. That is why so many people feel trapped. They say, "I don't want to think about them anymore." Yet moments later, they are thinking about them again. This is not because they are weak. It is because the mind follows the paths it has walked the most. Imagine walking across a field every single day. Eventually, a clear path appears. Walking that path becomes effortless. Thoughts work the same way. The more often you think about one person, the wider that mental path becomes. Soon, your mind automatically walks there without asking permission. The beautiful news is this: just as a path can be created, it can also disappear. When you stop walking across the field, grass slowly grows again. The old path fades away. In exactly the same way, when you stop feeding old memories every day, the mind slowly creates new paths, new thoughts, new peace, new life. But this does not happen overnight. The Buddha never promised instant freedom. He taught daily awareness, small moments, one thought at a time, one breath at a time, one choice at a time. Have you ever tried pushing a beach ball under water? For a few seconds, you can keep it there, but the harder you push, the stronger it jumps back up. This is exactly what happens when you fight your thoughts. You tell yourself, "I will never think about them again." The mind hears only one word, them, and immediately brings them back. Buddhist practice teaches a gentler way. Instead of fighting the thought, notice it, smile gently. Say to yourself, "There is that memory again. There is sadness. There is longing. There is attachment." Then let it pass. Do not continue the story. Do not continue the conversation. Do not ask another question. Simply breathe and watch the thought leave. Imagine sitting beside a peaceful river. Leaves float gently across the water. You do not jump into the river to grab every leaf. You simply watch. Some leaves stay longer. Some disappear quickly, but eventually, every single one continues downstream. Thoughts are exactly the same. Some are joyful, some are painful, some remind you of people you loved. But none of them are meant to become your permanent home. The moment you stop chasing every thought, you begin discovering something remarkable. You are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. And the observer is always freer than the thought itself. This is the beginning of awakening. This is where true healing quietly begins. Not because the memories disappear, but because they stop controlling your life. Little by little, the heart becomes lighter. The silence becomes peaceful instead of painful. Your mornings become brighter. Your smile becomes genuine again, not because someone returned, but because you finally returned to yourself. Perhaps the greatest tragedy is not that someone walked away from your life. The greatest tragedy is spending years walking away from yourself while chasing someone who is no longer there. Your body continues living in today, but your heart remains locked inside yesterday. That is a prison no one else built. It was built by the stories your own mind kept repeating. The wonderful truth is, the same mind that built the prison can also open the door. The key is awareness. The key is acceptance. The key is seeing reality exactly as it is, not as memory wishes it to be. And perhaps this is the deepest lesson of all. You were never truly searching for the person who left. You were searching for the feeling of peace you believed they gave you. But Buddhist wisdom reminds us that no person can permanently give us peace. Anything that depends on another person can also disappear with another person. Real peace must come from within. It begins the moment you stop searching outside yourself for what has always been waiting quietly inside. The day you stop chasing the person your mind created is the day you finally meet the peaceful, wiser, stronger person you were always becoming. Every time you think of them, you give them more power over your peace. Have you ever wondered why someone who is no longer part of your life can still control your emotions? How is it possible that a person who is not standing beside you, not calling you, not speaking to you, not even thinking about you, can still make your heart feel heavy? The answer is not as mysterious as it seems. According to Buddhist wisdom, they are not controlling your mind. Your repeated thoughts about them are. This is one of the hardest truths to accept, because the mind always wants to believe that someone else is responsible for its suffering. It says, "They hurt me. They ruined my peace. They won't leave my mind." But if we become completely honest with ourselves, we begin to see something different. The moment they walked away, they stopped creating new pain. From that day forward, most of the suffering was created inside the mind. Not because you wanted to suffer, but because the mind kept returning to the same place, again and again and again. Imagine sitting beside a campfire in the middle of the night. The fire is warm. It gives light. But what keeps it burning? Not yesterday's flames, not tomorrow's flames, only the wood you continue placing into it today. If you stop adding wood, the fire slowly becomes smaller, then smaller again, until eventually only quiet ashes remain. Attachment works exactly the same way. Every thought is another piece of wood. Every memory you replay, another piece of wood. Every old message you read, another piece of wood. Every photograph you look at, another piece of wood. Every visit to their social media, another piece of wood. Every imaginary conversation before you fall asleep, another piece of wood. Then one day you ask yourself, why won't this pain disappear? Because without realizing it, you have been feeding it every single day. The Buddha taught that whatever we repeatedly feed becomes stronger. This is true for kindness. It is true for anger. It is true for fear. And it is especially true for attachment. The mind becomes stronger in whatever direction it is trained. Think about a farmer watering two different plants. One plant is healthy, the other is full of thorns. If the farmer pours water onto the thorn bush every morning, can he later complain that it became larger? Of course not. Growth follows attention. Your thoughts follow the same law. Whatever receives your attention begins growing inside your mind. If every morning begins with thoughts of the person who left, that memory becomes stronger. If every evening ends with imagining what could have been, that attachment becomes deeper. Eventually, the thought no longer waits for your invitation. It arrives on its own, not because fate is against you, but because repetition has trained your mind. Many people believe they are victims of their thoughts. Buddhist wisdom teaches something different. You are not a victim of your thoughts. You are a student training your mind every single day. The question is, what are you teaching it? If every day you teach your mind to return to the past, it will become an expert at returning to the past. If every day you teach it to notice the present moment, it slowly becomes peaceful. The mind learns through repetition. Just as a child learns a language by hearing the same words again and again, the mind learns emotional habits by repeating the same thoughts. This is why healing is not one big decision. It is thousands of small decisions, one thought at a time, one breath at a time, one moment at a time. Have you ever noticed what happens when you hear someone's name unexpectedly? In 1 second, your heart changes, your breathing changes, your emotions change. Nothing outside you actually happened. Only one thought appeared. Yet the body reacted as though the past had returned. This is the incredible power of thought. The body often cannot tell the difference between something happening now and something being remembered vividly. That is why replaying painful memories can make your heart race, even while sitting safely in a quiet room. The event is over, but the body keeps experiencing it because the mind keeps replaying it. Imagine watching the same sad movie every night before bed. Would you expect yourself to stop crying? Probably not. You would cry because you are experiencing the same emotional story again and again. Now imagine doing that for months or years. This is what many people unknowingly do inside their own minds. Every day, they replay the same emotional movie, the same conversations, the same goodbye, the same regrets, the same unanswered questions. Then they wonder why healing never arrives. Healing cannot enter a room that is already filled with yesterday. The Buddha often reminded his followers that clinging is like trying to hold water tightly in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Yet instead of relaxing, most people squeeze even harder. They believe that thinking more will finally bring understanding. If I think about it one more time, maybe I'll finally understand why they left. If I replay that conversation again, maybe I'll discover what I missed. Weeks become months. Months become years. Yet no new answer appears. Only the same pain, wearing different clothes. Sometimes the mind is not searching for answers. Sometimes it is simply trapped inside a habit. There is a huge difference. A habit does not ask whether something is helpful. It only asks whether something is familiar. Pain can become familiar. Loneliness can become familiar. Missing someone can become familiar. Even suffering can become familiar. And once something becomes familiar, the mind keeps returning to it because familiarity feels safe. This surprises many people. They ask, why would my mind choose pain? Because the mind does not always choose happiness. It often chooses what it already knows. This is why people sometimes return to unhealthy relationships, not because they are happy there, but because it feels familiar. The Buddha invited people to wake up from these unconscious patterns, to stop living on automatic, to begin noticing each thought before following it. Imagine standing at the entrance of a busy train station. Every few minutes, another train arrives. Some trains travel toward beautiful places. Others travel somewhere dark. Do you have to board every train? Of course not. You simply watch. You choose. Thoughts are exactly like trains. Every hour, dozens of thoughts arrive. Some bring gratitude, some bring fear, some bring old memories, some invite peace. The problem is that most people climb onto every painful train without even noticing. One memory appears, immediately they follow it. 5 minutes later, they are imagining conversations that never happened. 10 minutes later, they are crying over a future that no longer exists. 20 minutes later, their entire mood has changed. All because they boarded one thought without questioning where it was taking them. Mindfulness changes this completely. Instead of jumping onto every train, you remain standing on the platform. You watch the thought arrive. You recognize it. Then you let it continue without you. At first, this feels difficult, very difficult, because the habit has existed for so long. But every single time you choose not to follow the thought, something beautiful happens. The old habit becomes slightly weaker. The new habit becomes slightly stronger. This is how the mind changes, not through force, through gentle repetition. Many people believe peace arrives when they finally stop having painful thoughts. The Buddha taught something much wiser. Peace arrives when painful thoughts no longer control your actions. There is an enormous difference. Thoughts may still appear. Memories may still visit. But they become like birds flying across the sky. You notice them. You appreciate them if they are beautiful. You allow them if they are painful. But you do not build your home inside their flight. This is freedom. Freedom is not an empty mind. Freedom is a mind that no longer obeys every thought. The truth is, every time you choose to replay the past, you silently give that person another piece of your peace. You hand them another hour of your life. Another morning, another evening, another beautiful sunset that you never truly saw because your attention was somewhere else. Slowly, you begin giving away days that can never be returned. Life keeps moving. Seasons keep changing. Children grow older. Parents grow older. Your own life keeps unfolding. Yet your attention remains standing at a closed door, waiting, hoping, remembering. The Buddha would gently ask, "What are you waiting for?" The past cannot open that door. Only the present can. Only this breath. Only this moment. Only this choice. Today, right now, you have an opportunity, not to erase your memories, not to pretend that person never mattered, but to stop giving yesterday permission to steal today. Because every moment you choose awareness instead of attachment, you quietly reclaim another piece of your freedom. And perhaps the most powerful realization is this. The person who left your life cannot control your peace anymore. Only your repeated attention can. The moment you stop feeding the fire, the flames begin to fade. Not all at once, not in one day. But little by little, the smoke clears, the heat softens, the ashes grow cold, and one morning, you wake up and realize something extraordinary. You thought of them, but this time, your heart remained peaceful. That is the moment you know you are no longer carrying them. You are finally carrying yourself. And that is where true freedom begins. You are not heartbroken. You are grieving a future that never existed. One of the deepest reasons people cannot stop thinking about someone is not because they are still in love. It is because they are still attached to a future that never happened. This is a truth that many people spend years trying to understand. They believe the pain comes from losing a person. But if you look carefully, the pain often comes from losing a dream. When you first met them, you did not only see who they were, you also imagined who the two of you could become together. Without even realizing it, your mind quietly began writing a story, a beautiful story. You imagined growing older together. You imagined celebrating birthdays together. You imagined traveling together. You imagined building a peaceful home. You imagined introducing them to your family. You imagined waking up beside them years from now. You imagined ordinary mornings, drinking tea together, laughing together, growing through life together. None of these things had happened yet. But inside your mind, they already felt real. This is how the human mind works. It does not only remember the past, it also lives inside imagined futures. The Buddha understood this deeply. He taught that the mind is always moving. If it is not trapped in yesterday, it is often running toward tomorrow. Very few people truly live here, in this moment. The future your mind imagined felt so vivid that your heart accepted it as reality. So when the relationship ended, you did not only lose a person, you lost the future you had already begun living inside. That is why the pain feels so confusing. You tell yourself, "Why can't I move on? I know they are gone." So why does it still hurt? Because your heart is not only grieving someone who left, it is grieving thousands of moments that never had the chance to exist. You are grieving birthdays that were never celebrated, conversations that never happened, trips that were never taken, children who were never born, dreams that never became memories, promises that never had the chance to become reality. You are mourning possibilities, and possibilities are difficult to let go of, because unlike memories, they have no ending. Your mind keeps asking, what if? What if we had stayed together? What if things had been different? What if I had spoken differently? What if they had changed? What if we had one more chance? These questions feel harmless, but they quietly become one of the greatest sources of suffering, because every what if creates another imaginary future. And then the mind begins living inside that future, instead of the life that is actually happening. Imagine standing at the entrance of a beautiful garden. Behind you is the path you are meant to walk. Ahead of you is fresh life. New experiences, new friendships, new wisdom, new joy. But instead of entering the garden, you keep staring at a painting of the garden you once imagined. You never move. You never explore. You never discover what is actually waiting for you. You remain standing in front of an illusion. This is what attachment to an imagined future does. It freezes your life. The Buddha often reminded people that suffering begins the moment we demand life unfold exactly as we planned. Think about that. How many times has life surprised you? Perhaps the job you desperately wanted never came. Yet later you found something even better. Perhaps a door closed, only to lead you toward another path you never expected. Perhaps someone walked away, only because they were making space for a wiser version of yourself to be born. Life has always been changing, yet the mind keeps insisting, no, it should have happened my way. This silent argument with reality creates endless exhaustion. Reality keeps saying, it is over. The mind keeps answering, but it should not be. Reality keeps moving forward. The mind keeps looking backward, and your heart becomes trapped between the two. Imagine trying to swim against the current of a powerful river. For a few moments, you may make progress, but eventually, your arms become tired, your breathing becomes heavy. Not because the river is cruel, but because you are fighting its direction. Life is that river. Time is always flowing forward. The more you fight what has already happened, the more exhausted you become. Acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is learning how to float with reality instead of drowning while fighting it. Many people misunderstand acceptance. They think it means saying, I never loved them. That is not acceptance. Others believe it means pretending the relationship meant nothing. That is not acceptance either. Acceptance simply means saying, it happened, it mattered. It changed me, and now it has ended. Those simple words carry enormous freedom, because they stop the endless battle inside your mind. One of the greatest illusions the mind creates after heartbreak is believing. I lost my only chance. How often have you heard people say, I will never find someone like them again? At first, that sentence sounds romantic, but if you look closely, it is built on fear. How could anyone possibly know what tomorrow holds? The future has not happened yet. The people you will meet have not all entered your life. The lessons waiting for you have not all arrived. Yet the mind confidently declares, my best days are behind me. The Buddha would smile gently at this thought, because it is only another story, not reality. Reality simply says, this chapter ended. The mind adds, and no beautiful chapter will ever come again. Can you see the difference? Reality speaks with simplicity. The mind speaks with drama. Reality says, the flower has fallen. The mind says, the garden is dead forever. But every spring, new flowers bloom. Life has never stopped creating new beginnings. Only the frightened mind believes every ending is permanent. Think about nature. Every autumn, trees lose every leaf. If trees believed like humans sometimes do, they would think, my beauty is gone forever. Yet they remain still. Patient, quiet, without panic, without fear, without trying to glue yesterday's leaves back onto their branches. They trust the seasons, and because they trust, spring always returns. Human beings often do the opposite. We try to hold on to yesterday's leaves. We keep replaying old conversations, reading old messages, looking at old photographs, listening to songs connected to the past. We keep trying to rebuild a season that has already finished. Then we wonder why we never experience spring again. The Buddha taught that clinging to the past closes our eyes to the present. Imagine carrying a heavy suitcase everywhere you go. Every morning, you pick it up. Every evening, you carry it home. After months, your shoulders begin hurting. People ask, why are you so tired? You answer, life is heavy. But is life heavy, or is the suitcase? Most people never stop to ask that question. The imagined future you continue carrying is that suitcase. Every day you carry it. Every day it becomes heavier. Not because life keeps adding weight, but because you refuse to place it down. Imagine how light your body would feel if you finally released it. Imagine how deeply you could breathe. Imagine how clearly you could see the world. This is what happens when you release attachment to a future that never existed. Suddenly, today becomes interesting again. You notice the sunrise. You notice birds singing. You notice your own laughter returning. You notice opportunities you never saw before. Not because the world changed, because your attention changed. Attention is one of the greatest treasures you possess. Where your attention goes, your life follows. If your attention lives in yesterday, your life remains there. If your attention lives inside imagined futures, you never truly experience today. The Buddha invited us back to the present because this is the only place where life actually exists. You cannot breathe yesterday's air. You cannot walk inside tomorrow. You can only live this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, this sunrise, this conversation, this chance. Many people postpone happiness until someone returns, until someone apologizes, until life becomes exactly as they imagined. But happiness built upon conditions is fragile. The Buddha showed another way. He taught that peace begins the moment you stop demanding life become different before allowing yourself to live. That is true freedom. Perhaps the person who left was never meant to stay forever. Perhaps they entered your life to teach you something no one else could. Perhaps they awakened parts of your heart that had been asleep. Perhaps they showed you both your strength and your attachment. Perhaps their greatest gift was not their presence, but what their absence revealed about your own mind. Sometimes life removes a person because it is trying to return you to yourself, not to punish you, not to make you lonely, but to help you discover a peace that does not depend on anyone else's presence. And perhaps this is the deepest truth of all. You are not standing in the ruins of the future you lost. You are standing at the doorway of a future you cannot yet see. The mind keeps asking you to look backward. Life keeps inviting you forward. Every sunrise is quietly asking the same question. Will you continue mourning the story that was never written, or will you begin writing the beautiful story that is still waiting for you? The moment you release the future your imagination created, You finally become available for the future that reality has been preparing all along. And sometimes that future becomes far more peaceful, far more meaningful, and far more beautiful than anything your mind could have imagined. The longer you chase their memory, the further you walk away from yourself. One of the saddest things that can happen after someone leaves your life is not that they are gone. The saddest thing is that, little by little, you begin disappearing too. At first, you do not notice it. You continue waking up every morning. You go to work. You answer messages. You smile when people talk to you. From the outside, everything looks normal. But inside, something has quietly changed. Your body is living in today, but your mind is living somewhere else. It is living in yesterday. It is living inside old conversations, old memories, old photographs, old dreams, old promises. Without realizing it, you slowly stop living your own life. Instead, you begin living inside a memory. This is why the Buddha spoke so often about awareness, because the greatest danger is not always pain. The greatest danger is living without noticing where your mind has gone. Ask yourself a simple question. How many hours have you spent thinking about someone who is no longer part of your life? Not one day, not 1 week, but altogether. If every day you spent just 1 hour replaying old memories, 1 hour wondering what they are doing, 1 hour imagining different endings, by the end of 1 year, you would have given away more than 360 hours of your life. That is more than 15 entire days. 15 days that will never return. Now imagine doing that for 5 years. Or 10. Suddenly, you begin understanding the true cost of attachment. It is not only emotional pain, it is the life you quietly lose while carrying it. Time is the one treasure no person can earn back. Money can return. Relationships can begin again. Success can come later. But one moment that has passed is gone forever. Every minute spent chasing yesterday is a minute you never truly lived today. The Buddha taught that human life is precious because every moment is temporary. Yet the mind behaves as though time is endless. It whispers, "I'll start living after I heal. I'll be happy after I forget them. I'll enjoy life when the pain disappears." But life does not wait. The seasons keep changing. Children keep growing. Parents grow older. Friends move on. The sun continues rising every morning. Whether your mind joins the present or remains trapped in the past, life keeps moving. Imagine standing on the side of a beautiful river. The water keeps flowing. Fresh water arrives every second. But instead of looking at the river, you keep staring at an empty bottle you dropped into the water years ago. You keep hoping it will somehow float back. Meanwhile, thousands of beautiful moments pass right in front of you, but you never see them, because your eyes remain fixed on what is already gone. This is how attachment steals life. Not suddenly, quietly, one unnoticed moment after another. Have you ever noticed that people who cannot let go often stop discovering who they are? They stop trying new things. They stop following old dreams. They stop learning. They stop exploring. They stop growing, not because they are lazy, but because all their emotional energy is being spent somewhere else. Think of your attention as sunlight. Wherever sunlight falls, things begin to grow. If all your attention continues shining on someone who left, what happens to your own heart? It slowly remains in the shadows. Your own dreams stop growing. Your confidence weakens. Your curiosity disappears. Your joy becomes smaller, not because you are broken, but because you are watering someone else's memory while your own soul becomes thirsty. The Buddha often reminded his students that compassion must also include yourself. Many people understand kindness toward others. They forgive, they help, they support. But they forget to show that same kindness to the person they see every morning in the mirror. They abandon themselves while trying to hold on to someone else. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you truly listened to yourself? Not your thoughts about another person, not your worries, not your regrets. You. When was the last time you sat quietly without reaching for old memories? When was the last time you asked yourself, what kind of person do I want to become now? Most people ask, why did they leave? Very few ask, what is life trying to teach me through their leaving? That second question changes everything, because suddenly your attention moves away from another person and returns to your own growth. Sometimes people leave because their chapter in your life is complete, not because you failed, not because you were unworthy, not because love itself was a mistake. Some people simply cannot walk with you forever. A bridge is useful while crossing the river, but you do not build your house on the bridge. In the same way, some people help you cross one season of life. Then life gently asks both of you to continue on different paths. The problem begins when you refuse to leave the bridge. Years later, you are still standing there, looking backward, waiting. Meanwhile, the road ahead remains unexplored. The Buddha taught that attachment often comes from confusing temporary companions with permanent destinations. No person can become your entire purpose. No relationship can become your whole identity. Because the moment it disappears, you begin feeling as though you no longer exist. That is why many people say, I don't even know who I am anymore. This sentence reveals something important. They did not only lose another person, they slowly lost themselves. Little by little, their happiness depended on someone else's presence. Their confidence depended on someone else's approval. Their peace depended on someone else's attention. When that person left, everything collapsed. But Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us, anything outside of you can change. People change. Feelings change. Circumstances change. Life changes. If your peace depends entirely on things that constantly change, your peace will always feel fragile. Real freedom begins when your happiness slowly returns home. Not to another person, to your own heart. Imagine carrying a lantern on a dark night. As long as you hold it, you can see the path. Now imagine handing that lantern to someone else. Suddenly, your ability to walk safely depends entirely on whether they stay beside you. That is what happens when you place your peace inside another human being. The Buddha never taught people to stop loving. He taught them not to lose themselves inside love. There is a difference. You can care deeply. You can appreciate someone. You can cherish beautiful memories, but never at the cost of abandoning your own life. Because the relationship you will carry until your final breath is the relationship with your own mind. Every morning, you wake up with yourself. Every night, you sleep with yourself. No matter where life takes you, you remain your closest companion. So why spend years ignoring the one person who has never left you? The greatest journey is not finding someone who completes you. The greatest journey is remembering the completeness that has always existed within you. Perhaps this is why solitude feels so frightening for many people. The silence leaves no distractions, no conversations, no notifications, no one else to focus on, only yourself. And many people have spent so long escaping themselves that silence feels uncomfortable. but the Buddha entered silence willingly, because silence reveals what noise keeps hiding. At first, you meet your loneliness, then your fears, then your attachment, then your sadness. But if you remain patient, something beautiful begins to happen. Behind all those emotions, you finally meet yourself, the version of you that existed before the heartbreak, before the attachment, before the endless overthinking, the peaceful awareness that has been waiting quietly underneath all the noise. This is why healing is not becoming someone new. Healing is remembering who you were before the mind became attached to suffering. Imagine a mirror covered in years of dust. The mirror has not lost its ability to reflect. It is simply hidden. Your true self is the same. It has never disappeared. It has only been covered by layers of fear, regret, attachment, and endless thinking. Every mindful breath removes a little dust. Every moment of acceptance removes another layer, until one day you see yourself clearly again. Not as someone's partner, not as someone who was rejected, not as someone who was left behind, but simply as yourself, whole, present, alive. Perhaps the greatest gift the person who left unknowingly gave you was the opportunity to meet the version of yourself that no longer depends on anyone else to feel complete. That version is stronger, calmer, wiser, more compassionate, not because life became easier, but because you finally stopped searching outside yourself for what had always been quietly waiting within. So ask yourself one final question. If you spend another 5 years chasing their memory, where will your own life be? Who will you become? What dreams will remain unfinished? What beautiful moments will pass unnoticed? Now ask yourself another question. What might become possible if today you gently turned around, stopped chasing yesterday, and began walking toward yourself instead? Perhaps the life you have been searching for has never been behind you. Perhaps it has been patiently waiting ahead of you all along. And the first step toward that life is not finding someone else. It is finally coming home to yourself. The day you stop needing closure is the day your freedom begins. There is one invisible chain that keeps millions of people trapped long after a relationship has ended. It is not love. It is not memory. It is not even attachment alone. It is the belief that peace cannot begin until one more thing happens, one more conversation, one more apology, one more explanation, one more message, one more chance. The mind quietly whispers, if they would only tell me why, I could finally move on. If they apologized, I would finally feel at peace. If I could just speak to them one last time, my heart would finally become quiet. At first, these thoughts seem reasonable. After all, who would not want answers? Who would not want understanding? Who would not want a proper ending? But Buddhist wisdom asks a question that changes everything. What if the thing you are waiting for was never the thing that could set you free? Think about how many people have actually received the apology they waited years for. Some did. Yet many of them still carried pain. Others received long explanations, yet their hearts remained restless. Some even reunited with the person they thought they needed, only to discover that the peace they imagined never arrived. Why? Because peace cannot be built upon something you cannot control. The moment your peace depends on another person's actions, you hand them the key to your emotional life. Without realizing it, you begin saying, "My happiness is waiting in someone else's hands." The Buddha spent his life teaching the opposite. He taught that freedom begins the moment you stop depending on the outside world to calm the inside world. Imagine standing in front of a locked door. You believe someone else has the key. So every day, you wait, you hope, you look toward the road. Maybe today they will come. Maybe today they will unlock the door. Days pass, months pass, years pass. Your whole life becomes waiting. Then one day, you quietly discover something astonishing. The door was never locked. It only appeared locked because you never tried turning the handle yourself. This is what closure truly is. It is not something another person gives you. It is something you choose. Many people believe closure is an event. Buddhist wisdom teaches that closure is awareness. It is the quiet moment when you stop asking life to explain itself. It is the moment you stop arguing with reality. Reality says, "They left." The mind answers, "But why?" Reality says, "It is over." The mind answers, "It should not have happened." Reality continues moving. The mind refuses, and suffering is born inside that argument. Imagine standing in the rain while shouting at the sky, "Stop raining." Will the rain stop? No, the rain simply continues. Eventually, you become exhausted, not because of the rain, but because you kept fighting something beyond your control. Life works the same way. Some endings will never make complete sense. Some people will never explain themselves. Some questions will never receive satisfying answers. Not because life is unfair, but because life does not promise complete explanations. It only promises change. The Buddha often reminded his students that one of the greatest causes of suffering is demanding certainty from an uncertain world. Human beings desperately want everything to make sense. We want clear endings, clear reasons, clear justice. But life is rarely that simple. Sometimes people leave without warning. Sometimes promises are broken. Sometimes love changes. Sometimes hearts change. Sometimes people cannot even explain their own actions, yet the mind keeps insisting there must be one final answer. Years pass searching for that answer, while life quietly waits for you to begin living again. Imagine holding a book whose final chapter has been torn away. You become obsessed. What happened? How did it end? You read the same pages again. You search everywhere for the missing chapter. Eventually, you forget something important. The book has already given you everything it was able to give. The missing pages no longer exist. Would you spend the rest of your life staring at that unfinished book? Or would you gently place it on the shelf and begin reading the next chapter of your own life? This is exactly what the mind struggles to do. It wants every story to end perfectly, but many stories simply end. Without warning, without fairness, without explanation. Acceptance begins the moment you stop demanding that unfinished stories become complete. If I just understand everything, then I will finally let go. But understanding is not always what heals. Sometimes acceptance heals long before understanding arrives. Think about nature. When autumn comes, the tree does not ask every falling leaf, "Why are you leaving me?" It does not beg the wind to return them. It simply lets go, quietly, patiently, trusting that another season will come. This is not because the tree feels no loss. It is because the tree understands something we often forget. Holding on to dead leaves prevents new ones from growing. The same is true for the human heart. Every moment spent clinging to what has already fallen leaves less space for what is trying to bloom. The Buddha taught that life is a continuous flow. Nothing remains exactly as it is. Trying to freeze life is like trying to hold a river in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the less you are able to hold. Have you ever watched children playing on a beach? They build beautiful sandcastles. For hours, they laugh. They work carefully. They create something wonderful. Then the tide arrives. The waves slowly wash everything away. The child cries for a moment. But before long, they begin building again. Adults often do the opposite. The tide comes, life changes, a relationship ends, someone leaves. Yet instead of building again, we spend years standing where the old castle once stood, pointing toward the empty sand, saying, "It should still be here." The ocean never argues. It simply continues moving. And life quietly invites us to move with it. Many people think letting go means forgetting. That is not what Buddhist wisdom teaches. You do not need to erase someone from your memory. You do not need to pretend they never mattered. You do not need to destroy every photograph or throw away every memory. True letting go is much gentler than that. It means remembering without becoming trapped. It means appreciating without clinging. It means allowing someone to become part of your story without allowing them to become the author of your future. Imagine carrying a beautiful stone in your pocket. It reminds you of an important journey. You appreciate it. You smile when you see it. But you do not chain it around your neck. You do not allow it to stop you from walking. Memories can be carried in the same way, with gratitude, without imprisonment. One day, you will remember them. A smile may appear. A little sadness may visit. Then the moment will quietly pass. Not because you stopped loving, but because love no longer demands possession. The Buddha showed that this is one of the highest forms of wisdom: to love without clinging, to appreciate without controlling, to remember without suffering, to release without hatred. That is inner freedom. Perhaps the hardest truth of all is this: the person who hurt you may never understand your pain. They may never realize what you carried. They may never apologize. They may never come back. And yet, your life still deserves peace. Your heart still deserves joy. Your morning still deserves sunlight. Your future still deserves hope. Why should your happiness remain frozen because someone else never became the person you hoped they would be? Why should your beautiful life remain paused because another chapter ended? The Buddha would gently remind you that every sunrise arrives without asking yesterday for permission. The birds sing each morning without asking whether yesterday was fair. The flowers bloom without waiting for the previous season to return. Nature does not wait for perfect endings. It simply continues becoming. And perhaps that is exactly what life is asking from you. Not to erase the past, not to hate the person who left, not to pretend nothing happened, but simply to continue becoming, to continue growing, to continue breathing deeply, to continue loving life, to continue discovering the peaceful person hidden beneath all the attachment. One day, without even realizing it, you will wake up. You will think of them for a brief moment. But this time, there will be no tightness in your chest, no endless questions, no silent argument with reality, only quiet understanding. You will smile gently. Thank life for the lesson and continue walking. That is the day you will understand what true closure really is. It was never hidden inside another person's apology. It was never waiting inside one final conversation. It was never locked inside another chance. It was quietly waiting inside your own willingness to let life be exactly what it is. And perhaps this is the final lesson the Buddha wanted every seeker to discover. Freedom does not arrive when life finally gives you every answer. Freedom arrives when you no longer need every answer to live peacefully. The day you stop waiting for someone else to complete your healing is the day your healing truly begins. The day you stop needing closure from another person is the day you finally open the door to a peace that no one can ever take away from you again. If someone has already left your life, do not let them keep living inside your mind. The Buddha taught that suffering does not come from what has ended. It comes from refusing to let it end within us. Every time you choose the present over the past, every time you choose awareness over attachment, you take another step toward real freedom. Remember, the goal is not to forget. The goal is to become so deeply at peace that the memory no longer has the power to disturb your heart. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to Golden Lotus Wisdom and join us as we continue the journey toward a calmer mind, a stronger heart, and lasting inner peace. Until next time, protect your peace, guard your mind, and keep walking the path of wisdom.